Hey guys, Sean Michael with the Sean Michael simulation here. Another day in the simulation. Today we're doing a live unboxing video, unboxing the Mavic Air 2, a new flying camera from DJI. Don't you already have a Mavic? You may quite reasonably ask. Yes, I'm building a fleet of Mavics apparently, but I really do enjoy the Mavic range of drones, although I also have a couple of Phantoms. Phantoms are kind of large and bulky, whereas the Mavics feature that wonderful folding arm design. They fold down to a very small footprint and make some really good travel drones. And the quality of the Mavic series is just wonderful. So here we have the box. Again, this is the Mavic Air 2, just hit the market. I waited in line like everybody else and bought mine. There's one notable sticker on the front, and you may not be able to make it out, but down here it says ADS-B AirSense. This has a technology that apparently notifies the drone if there is some sort of aircraft coming into the airspace. So it's really a new safety technology. I believe initially it's only available in North America, but it really, in theory, will enhance the safety of using these drones and greatly reduce the risk of a drone collision with another aircraft. So I'm sliding open the box now. We're going to see what's inside. DJI always does a pretty nice job with the packaging. There is the lid. Smells like a fresh drone, doesn't it? So here is the Mavic Air 2. I'm going to go ahead and pull it out, and we'll just take a look at the drone itself. It reminds me a lot of my first generation Mavic Pro, which is lying around here in the studio somewhere on the floor. But for comparison purposes, I have my Mavic Mini and also my Mavic 2 Zoom. So here is the Mavic Air 2, and here is a Mavic Mini. And one thing that's striking about the new Mavic Air design is they really sort of changed from the previous Mavic Air design. The Mavic Air original model had a very distinctive look, and DJI has changed the series to bring it more in line with the other Mavics. Now all the Mavic drones look pretty consistent up and down the line. They're basically just larger versions of one another. So the Mavic Air is kind of a tweener model. It's in between the Mini and the Pro series in terms of weight and to an extent features. More on that in a minute. As far as the difference in the hand and the footprint, I would say the Mavic Air feels at least twice as large and heavy as the Mavic Mini. And if you look on the scale, I don't have the numbers with me right now, but I do know, because it's been drilled into my brain, the Mavic Mini weighs 249 grams with a battery on board, whereas the Mavic Air is going to be more than double that. I think the Mavic Air with battery is going to be between 500 and 600 grams. So you will probably have to register this drone in certain countries, whereas with the Mavic Mini, you scoot in beneath that registration requirement at 249 grams. So my first impression of the drone is it looks very much like my Mavic Mini and my Mavic 2 Zoom. And yeah, the exterior design is almost identical in many respects. Overall, I kind of like that because I like the consistency up and down the model range. Now, something DJI has become brilliant at doing, which is really annoying, is they'll give you almost every feature you want in a different drone. So each one of these drones probably does something a little bit different, has different advantages and different disadvantages. And for example, my older Mavic 2 Zoom, now I have loved this drone. I've never had any real problems with the drone. I would say the only problem I ever had was that the collision detection maybe at times was a little bit oversensitive. But in many ways, on paper at least, it has been surpassed by the Mavic Air 2. Now, the Mavic Air 2, this retails for $799. If you're going to get the Fly More package, which is sold out at the moment, it would be more like $1,000. Because the Fly More package was sold out, I just picked up the drone itself, which comes with a spare battery, a controller, and I also purchased a separate battery. But what advantages has DJI unleashed with the Mavic Air 2? Why would you want a Mavic Air 2? Why would you want the tweener model? Well, in this case, the tweener model really eclipses the higher end model in many respects. The Mavic 2 series is getting kind of long in the tooth in drone terms. That is, it's about 2 years old. So each year, everything gets better significantly from a technological standpoint inside these drones. When I first saw the specs of the Mavic Air 2, I said, whoa, they really packed a lot into this little drone. First and foremost, 4K 60p. So you can shoot 60 frames per second at a 4K resolution. Previously, I would need to go to my Phantom 4 Pro version 2.0 to shoot 4K 60p. This has it. 48 megapixel pictures. Amazing. So like you can shoot really high resolution photographs that would be presumably print worthy. It has the ADS-B protection against collisions with other aircraft. It has a 34-hour flight time. Sorry, 34-minute flight time. We're not up to the 34-hour stage just yet. So a 34-minute flight time. You know, the Mavic Mini has about a 30-minute flight time. So that's a really long flight time. A couple of batteries, you're going to be able to go for at least an hour of real-world flight time, assuming reasonable wind conditions and so forth. So they've really packed a lot of features into this little drone. And it sort of strikes me as being very similar in terms of weight and footprint to the very first Mavic. We're going to take a look at some footage of the Mavic now. This will be the Mavic Air 2. And you can sort of see it out and about in the world, assuming the screen share works. So I'm going to continue unboxing this drone, and I'll respond to some questions if you guys post some questions in the comments. The next big change with the Mavic Air 2 is this. This is the new controller, and I've been very intrigued to hear about this new controller because I've not been a huge fan of the old Mavic controller design, which requires you to sort of affix a smartphone beneath the controller. So this is my Mavic Mini controller. Here's the Mavic Air 2 controller. And it sometimes happens, I don't think, there it goes. For some reason, the screen share is not working so hot. So the new Mavic Air controller, you will affix the smartphone to the top of the controller. And you can see this little bracket slides out. You slide your cell phone into the top, connect it up. And my initial reaction is the controller feels very good in the hands. It's larger than the older controller, but not as much as it might look at first glance. Because the old controller, by the time you fold it out, was kind of large. So the older controller did have a slight size advantage. It's smaller. But the new controller, I would say, feels much better in the hands. But I actually have an excellent question from, who is that person? Christy Michael, my wife, checking in on me. And she asks an excellent question. Will the Mavic Air 2 work with my fancy remote controller? And what Christy is talking about is this. This is the DJI Smart Controller. This is a really expensive piece of hardware, and I think I paid $700 for it. Don't tell my wife. But it really provides a great deal of convenience when you're out traveling with your drone and time is precious and you want to set up and go. You don't have to fumble around with a smartphone or tablet You pull out your DJI smart controller, flip out the antenna, turn it on, and you can get up in the air in about 60 seconds to 90 seconds instead of basically a 5-minute process of fumbling around trying to attach your smartphone to a cable to the controller. I don't like that whole process, and so I really love the smart controller. Recently, the smart controller has become a much more valuable piece of gear because DJI has introduced functionality with the Phantom 4 Pro version 2.0. And yes, the Mavic Air 2 supports the smart controller. It uses what they call OcuSync 2.0 technology. It's definitely the most stable, the best range of any kind of connection between controller and drone. And being able to use this smart controller is fantastic. So my thinking with the Mavic Air 2 is that I'm going to be able to travel and basically bring one controller and have 3 drones using that one controller. I'll be able to fly my Phantom 4 2.0, the Mavic Air 2, and the Mavic 2 Zoom. Good Lord, how do I keep all these drone names straight? Unfortunately, the Mavic Mini does not support OcuSync 2.0 technology, so I cannot use my smart controller with the Mavic Mini. Now, some of you may ask, will you still be using your Mavic Mini even though you have the Mavic Air 2? Time will tell. Honestly, on paper, the Mavic Air 2 is a complete powerhouse. It has a ridiculous number of features and is really great value for the money. You know, Mavic Air 2 not only shoots the 4K 60p, as I mentioned, it has collision detection built in, obstacle avoidance sensors. I see them front and rear and downward as well, so it can sense the ground. Whereas the Mavic Mini, it may have the downward sensors, but there's no obstacle avoidance at all. So I think in terms of safety in flying, there's no comparison. The Mavic Air 2 will be a much safer drone to fly. With that said, it's larger, it's heavier, it's bulkier, and the Mavic Mini really produces wonderful footage, as we've demonstrated here. So I think I may end up still traveling overseas with the Mavic Mini. You know, I wish that DJI would unlock the full potential of the Mavic Mini, just max out the hardware, even knowing the limitations that it has no collision detection and so forth, give us the best resolution, give us all the quick shot modes. So my next step with the Mavic Air 2 will be to charge some batteries and put on some props and get this thing in the air. And then I'll report back to you with some more detailed footage from the air. But, you know, my first impression is that it's a substantial drone. Again, it is the tweener model. And I think for a lot of people, this is going to be the ideal drone because every year the technology improves. And so like this drone not only shoots 4K 60p, it shoots HDR video. So you get really high dynamic range video that I believe none of the other DJI drones can produce. So I think there are going to be circumstances where the Mavic Air 2 will produce more pleasing footage than the higher end models, including the Mavic 2 Zoom, Mavic 2 Pro, and maybe even the Phantom 4 version 2.0. Oh, and by the way, there's a 1/2-inch sensor inside this. So they've improved it across the board. I mean, flight time, the sensor, the processing unit inside the sensor, collision detection. Yeah, and so I think these are such wonderful drones that if you're in the market for one, you know, for less than $1,000, you're going to be hard pressed to find a more powerful drone. I want to take one question from James Bull. He says, "Hey, Sean, been living with ADS-B for a long time, flying corporate jets." Let's see. He says, "That's good, but for drones, that may crimp our style. I have a Mavic Air Pro." That's an interesting point. And it remains to be seen because I've never flown with ADS-B. But DJI has done a great job on one hand, with these geofencing and locking drones out of potentially dangerous locations. On the other hand, as a drone pilot, it can be very frustrating when you are out in the field and you're nowhere near any kind of aircraft or airport, and yet you find yourself locked out. Let's say, like, there are situations in which, maybe you want to take your drone off and fly it 20 feet in the air above your backyard. Some people can't do that just because of geofencing and where they live. So it will remain to be seen how sensitive this ADS-B technology is and whether that's going to be a significant detriment to flying these drones. So on one hand, you have to congratulate DJI for pursuing a safe course. And, I think they've been trying to follow best practices in terms of keeping the drones out of potentially dangerous areas. On the other hand, I've never heard of a single aircraft crash due to collision with a drone, at least one of these little consumer drones. Never heard of it ever happening anywhere in the world. There's been a lot of concern about it, understandably so. It makes sense to take reasonable precautions, but it has not happened one time, to my knowledge. So, maybe we have had an overabundance of caution on that front. But I'll report back soon about the ADS-B. Right now, I'm going to go off and plug up my Mavic Air 2, put on some props, get it charging up, and get it ready to go. And I'll report back to you guys later and let you know how it's working out. As always, thank you for tuning in. This has been another thrilling episode of the Sean Michael Sim. Now it's time for me to grab some lunch. Until next time, if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. When we hit the 10,000 subscriber mark, we're going to have some sort of giveaway here. We're going to have a little bit of fun. I'll probably be announcing that soon, so stay tuned for that. Thanks, guys. See you later.